Hello and welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Quantum Compass. My name, of course, is David. I'm going to be one of your co-navigators for today. And, of course, I'm joined by the one and only, the beautiful...
Hi, I'm Bella and welcome back.
All right, everybody. So we are into some pretty strong currents right now. The energy is very, very intense. Every day feels like it's its own drama. Every day has explosive narratives coming out of it from the goggle box. Maybe true, maybe not true. We don't know. But I imagine most of us are also feeling it at the individual and personal level. We certainly are. And we had some really interesting calls with our tribe over the last week or so, and people expressing the same thing: difficulty sleeping, body ache, so on and so forth. So our job, as always, right, Bella, is to have a look at the incoming energies and see if we can find a route through all of this chaos energy to the new Earth territory, which actually we're already on. That's the crazy thing. We're living in two realities right now, and it can be a little disorientating, right, Bella?
Yeah, that's why we're trying to bring some tools that help us navigate and ride these waves of intensity. We come from the wave spell of the warrior, and the message there was to be fearless because there was going to be too many changes being thrown at us. And we knew that the world wasn't going to look the same after the last wave spell. And now we're getting to the last part of this Tzolkin, which I'll talk more about. But hopefully we'll give you here some tools and some help to navigate this.
Right, so we have had a couple of quite challenging wave spells in a row. The one preceding, the one that we're currently in and recording in, which is the Yellow Warrior, was the Blue Magnetic Knight. I know that that was challenging for quite a few people, me included. However, we are now moving into the final castle, as Bella will show us, of this particular Tzolkin, and we are now in the wave spell of the Red Magnetic Moon, running from the 1st to the 13th of February. So, as always, Bella has prepared a wonderful presentation just to talk us through this, to make it easier to follow. And where are we going to start this week, Bella?
So we'll start then with a little bit of the background of everything that's going on. We know we are in the middle of the evolutionary shift, and it is of high relevance that we shift our consciousness to meet the planetary shift, because it is the planet that is going through the shift. And until we can raise our consciousness, because we're all going to go together, so that's what we need to be in the same frequency so that there are no more disturbances in what's going on.
Right. So, you know, a lot of the gig that we've had here at QPW, right, Bella, has been the repairing and the reclaiming of the universal fractal time codes. And I think you've mentioned it here, what we've been living under and why. And we did talk a lot about this in the Mayan time and magic, but perhaps you want to just review that, Bella, for people who maybe don't know.
I just keep on adding little bits of information so that the bigger picture is clearer and we know where we're at and where we're going. So for a long time, for thousands of years even, we've been in a battle for the destiny of the human race. And right now we're at the turning point into the great unknown, where humanity hasn't been before, because for the first time, we are almost there, like about to do our shift and find that point of liberation, of freedom. And is where the ancient past and the future collide, because that is part of the repairing of time. We're coming to that point where there is a singularity moment, and then we get to create the next part of our future. Did you want to add anything there?
Well, what I would add to this is that there are two ways of looking at things. First of all, there is what is happening in the energy realms, the non-physical, particularly in the astral realms, which is the place of human emotions. It's also the place of human manipulation, all of which is about to come to an end. And we can understand that perhaps humanity is going through its own personal Stockholm syndrome moment, that somehow it's easier to stay enslaved, to be wedded to the old paradigm system, the matrix, the underworld-driven matrix, and somehow it's easier to stay with something you know than to jump into something you don't know. However, that's also not true, because as souls, we have lived in this universal fractal time before, and that is why we are here now, is to repair that, to remove the slavery system from planet Earth. But we're all going to have to jump, and as we do, we're going to need the spiritual courage of the warrior to do so. That's why this wave spell has been so critical in preparation for what is coming with the red moon, right, Bella?
Mm-hmm. So part of this big process is the awakening in man. because it is the majority that are still in this hallucination, in this dream spell, and they don't comprehend the timeline alterations that we have experienced throughout hundreds and even thousands of years. So this is a very important point, is a consciousness shift to return Earth to its natural order. If you're listening to this message, if you're in the planet right now and you've done your inner work, it's because you're part of this, and you're part of this consciousness shift that is so that the Earth can move into this new Earth template, which is the original blue template. Because since 2012, we know that the whole story of the Mayan calendar and the cycle, the big cycle of 5,200 years, ended in 2012. And indeed, many of us did quite the shift and started our inner work, started our spiritual path, but these 13 years bring us to the point of the shift, because it needs at least 13 years for this shift. Remember, everything in this system works with number 13. 13 tones, 13 articulations, 13 steps of the navigation guide. And now 13 years take us now to this year of the storm that is about to finish in July. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that too, how the storm process is still ongoing.
Right, and if we think about it, if we were originally in a 1320 time wave sequence and we got yanked out of that, as Bella has put here in the slide, actually this happened with Julius Caesar, as we've talked about before, back in 50 AD, when he introduced this system as a way of taxing people. It then gets ratified by Pope Gregory in 1582 after they removed, I think, around 12 or 13 days, interestingly. And we've been living in a tax-driven system ever since. But the critical point here is that they made the break between the 12 and the 13. The 13 is the completion. It's the transcendence in the 13-step sequence. It's also the number of the goddess. And this is really where we see that the system was switched, not just once, actually. When we look back in time, we can see multiple different timeline switches to keep reinforcing this system. However, that has already collapsed. At the energy level, the whole matrix has collapsed, and we're now in this kind of very sort of Saturn in Pisces moment also of feeling all at sea and trying to find something to hold on to, when really the thing that's most important is that we hold on to our sense of self and our own sacred center to navigate these choppy waters until we find that firm footing underneath our feet again.
Mm-hmm. So part of this grid that they have put, which is the 12-month Gregorian calendar and the 60-minute clock, makes human civilization disconnect from nature. So unless you make an effort to keep reconnecting to nature, it is designed to keep you disconnected from the cycles of nature and to keep the world in fear and chaos and outdated belief systems. And then just turn people into, if you think about when this happened in 1582, the whole Industrial Revolution and many other things happened soon after that, and then turn people into laborers, people that were just producing. So it's a way of extracting energy from us and turning people into like automatons.
Right, and also just to add to that, of course, the Industrial Revolution, which happened in the mid-1800s onwards, really actually took people off the land where they were growing, being self-sustaining, and took them and put them into the workhouses to become cogs in what was going to become the big industrial machine. Mm-hmm. And when I studied this many moons ago at university, I understood that that was a profound moment where humanity actually lost its ability to put the hands in the earth and feel the soil and feel Mother Earth and be self-sustaining by growing our own fruit and vegetables. We then gave that up. We shifted it into the factories to produce for the system. And lo and behold, here we are today, needing to free ourselves from that and return to something that is much more universal, abundance driven, rather than having to put our hand out like paupers to the system to give us what we need.
And the astrology since last month is been showing us the big changes, that things that happen in the 1500s and the 1800s, like for example, Pluto return in the US chart, which happened 248, 250 years ago, is coming back. And 500 years ago, the process of all of these stelliums that are happening in Aquarius and in Pisces and all of those things are repeating a cycle. But now we have enough people awake to make a shift. That is why it's so important that whoever is now paying attention understand that your energy counts, your consciousness counts on this big process. Because we know that the world mind, we're all connected, and the world mind is right now full of contradictory, fragmented, disharmonious thought forms, because many people are thinking of the violence, the war, the crisis that is happening. The people have lost that collective vision. We're not working as one. Everybody's just trying to do whatever they can, but many people have fallen into depression, and we've seen the amount of illnesses going up, people confused, loss of purpose, cognitive dissonance. Many people still don't understand what even happened in the last 4 years. Stress has gone up, and anxiety. So all of those things, we are all connected to the same grid. That is why it's so crucial that all of you who have been doing your work find that space, especially during this wave spell, where we get to go with the flow. We need to be able to purify these emotions, because the emotions are going to be super altered during this wave spell. So it's something I want to put out there, because we have the tools on how to be able to navigate these, though.
Right, and if we think about this from the perspective of duality, or perhaps even more so polarity, in this moment where unity consciousness is happening at an unprecedented scale, telepathy between connected souls is happening in a way that we haven't seen possibly for many eons. It makes sense that the only way, if you were opposing that kind of unity consciousness, is to keep projecting division and thus isolating people and not allowing us to come together and dream collectively. Because when we do, the world can change literally in the blink of an eye. And perhaps that is something for us all to think about as we move through these next couple of weeks into this new castle of ether with the red moon, which is all about flow and abundance, which Bella will share, I'm sure, in a minute. So I think it's really, really important that we don't give in to fear. It may be that we're getting our fear from the television. There's a lot of it being projected, but actually also perhaps really what is getting triggered here is our own unresolved rather, traumas and emotions, right?
For sure, all of that is going to come up. That's why it was so important to do the shadow work and the inner work that we've been doing for many people for the last 13 years, many for longer, but especially in the last 4 years. So one of the tools to flow with all of this is by changing our relationship with time, to understand that the artificial time, which is the Gregorian, keeps our minds under a different grid that is a control system. So as we change our perception of ourselves and the world, we change the frequency as well to 1320, which is the Tzolkin or the galactic calendar that we're working with, which is the natural one, which is reflected in our body, to sacred geometry. The golden mean ratio or the Fibonacci sequence follows this principle as well, as we talk about extensively in the navigation guide. So the big message here at in this introduction is that we're all connected in the planetary sphere of thought and collective intelligence, but we need to learn to work as a whole collective, and all of us bring in the same energy so that we can steer this time ship Earth into a higher timeline, and so that the shift is into the optimal future for all of us. So what do we need to do that? We need self-remembrance. We need to do the healing of whatever else, emotions are still there or traumas. We need knowledge. If you don't have knowledge, if you don't have tools, how are you going to advance? We need compassion, because the masses are now about to be hit with lots of disclosure and reality checks. We need action, which is use the tools that you have gathered through your spiritual path, through the galactic calendar, through all of the work that we put out there, is how to take action for this moment. And of course, we all need unconditional love at this point, because there will be too much polarity at this point, and we need to be able to bring unconditional love so we can transcend all of those.
Right, so this is where having a daily meditational practice and taking time each day to center yourself, ground yourself, but most of all, I would suggest the meditational practice perhaps needs to be going to a non-dualistic place. Because as we're about to see with this particular wave spell, the fourth dimension, the astral realm, the human emotional realm, is about to get super activated, because we're going to be in this energy of the moon. So every day I have a practice, Bella does too. We sit, we meditate, we take our consciousness to a more fifth dimensional eagle's perch perspective. And when we're in that place, what we actually see is that there are many other beings doing the same thing, and we can feel the collective unity consciousness kicking in now. So the more of us that do this every day and put ourselves above the astral emotional realms of polarity and duality, everything looks a little bit different. And if more people did that, then everything is going to stabilize much more quickly.
Yeah, we need a critical mass and a number of people that are enough to shift. And I'm sure that there are enough people now that have done spiritual work. We know of so many groups, so many tribes. So once we're fully conscious, or enough people are fully conscious, we can bring a new field of awareness, of new possibilities, so that we can manifest the cosmic civilization here on Earth, which is our destined future. And as we activate our hollow mind perceiver and all the work that we've been doing with heaven on earth, which is activating the elementals within us, we bring forward mind manifestation, because it's through our mind that we can activate all of these skills that we have dormant, like telekinesis and telepathy, clairaudience. We get to live longer, which is being a cosmic human. We're going to change our DNA through all of these processes. Yeah. So this one I had shared in the last show is just to remind everybody, you know, time is fractal and holographic, and we need to connect with art, which is, this is going to be very useful during this wave spell, since the emotions are going to be so up and down. Art is a wonderful way to come into the present moment and to be able to deal with the emotional stress that is going to be coming.
Right, and you know, for all of you who've been watching this show for a while, or have followed mine and Bella's work for a while, or indeed maybe have followed the work of people like Jose Arguelles and all of the Mayan time wave technology, perhaps now is the time to ask yourself the question, am I really, really prepared on every level to make a switch? Or am I saying that's a really, really nice idea, and then carrying on in the way that we've always done, which is really easy to do, and there's no judgment about that at all. It is a process to switch from one way of existing, one way of being, into another, but at some point we have to make that switch, and it is difficult. We understand that we're so programmed to be slaves to the old system that we don't really know anything else, and so we're having to make a series over these last couple of months of big jumps, all of us, to keep pushing the boundaries of the energy flow, coming particularly from the sun, but also the photon belt. Everything is on our side. We have so much help, but at the same time, our off-planet brothers and sisters, our higher dimensional selves, are really encouraging us to be the warrior, to step up and say, I take responsibility for my own sovereignty. Nobody else is going to give it to you.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is the moment to reclaim our sovereignty from artificial time and from many other systems that have kept us down and locked in. And we can walk into new era fearlessly, which is the message of the previous wave spell. And this one is telling us, be in the flow. This is what we need, be in the flow. A reminder that who owns your time owns your mind. And as we change our time and we change our mind, we can change the world around us. That is the process to get there. So I wanted to remind here everybody that the storm has been happening since July, but now we get to experience it more intensively because we're coming to the end of the Tzolkin, and I'll show you on the castles where we're at. But when we talk about the storm, it's not about only being worried about it. It's a catalyzer, and it's the necessary catalyzer so that we get to our renewal. So we will finally achieve some kind of balance in the world that we're living. And this blue storm is the purification, not only of our bodies, which this wave spell is going to help us greatly with, because we need to purify emotions, we need a detox of our bodies, we need to change our limiting beliefs and make sure that we ignite our light body through all of these processes, right? So this storm finishes in July 24 of 2025. So we have still a few more months. So I wanted to put here as a reminder of all of the good things that, in spite of being a stormy and rocky season, it's actually preparing us and helping us do, like the initiation by fire, which breaks any false containers of self that cannot withstand the flame of transmutation. So anything that doesn't serve us anymore, anything that is an illusion in our lives needs to be removed, dissolved. This is the lightning path, the arrival of the thunder beings who bring the final transformation. That is what we came to do. We came in during this process of big transformation for the planet, and we needed to do it through transforming ourselves, our beliefs, and everything that was going on.
Right. It's also worth mentioning, of course, that in this Mayan system, that every 4 years is a year of the storm. So it's actually a good idea to get used to these tumultuous energies of change, because it's a bit like Mother Nature. You know, every quarter at the end of the year, she goes through the death and rebirth process. Everything goes back into the earth in winter, and then it gets reborn in spring. So this is actually a natural cycle in many ways, Bella. I think the storm every 4 years gives us that kind of momentum for change, because otherwise what can happen is we get a little stagnant, a little inert, and then the energy doesn't flow. It gets kind of stuck in one place. So the storm is here to break up those more dense, solidified energies.
Yep. And that's exactly what we're doing with this year of the storm, clearing and quickening our physical, mental, emotional, and etheric bodies, becoming less dense, and activating our chemical powers, and DNA is getting activated and upgraded at the same time. And even though this cycle is every 4 years, there is a much bigger process here, because that is what we have within the Mayan calendars and within the galactic calendars, much bigger cycles. But this is an opportunity and a window that takes us through this process. As I was saying, 13 years after 2012, this is the moment of doing this big work.
Right, and also to say, you know, working with our own DNA, it would be easy to think, you know, I can't reconfigure my DNA, I can't repair my DNA. Again, that's disempowering. We have found that by working with certain plants, working with the Stellar Nations pathway, working with the navigation going to quantum consciousness, by going inwards regularly, daily, in fact, and doing lengthy meditations, connecting with our DNA, which you can do. It's all inside of us. It's not over there somewhere. It's not at the doctor's down the road. It's inside of us. And if we want to become multidimensional beings in a new Earth timeline, at some point we need to make the commitment to stand up for ourselves and say, hey, I want to be the fullest extent of myself. Or am I going to sit back on the couch, put on another Netflix box set, and carry on regardless? Well, that's fine. It's a world of choice. It's a world of free will. But in this moment, if you are still sat waiting for something to happen, I would suggest that maybe now, more than ever in this incarnation, is the time to step up and go inwards deeply every single day and ask yourself, what am I doing here? What is my purpose? Who the hell am I actually? We can do this work ourselves.
So this is a representation of the Tzolkin with the 4 colors, 4 directions. And we have done a whole round of the Tzolkin, which started in July, with the east, which represents the element of fire. Then we went to the white castle, which represents the energy of the air element. Then we went to the water, blue. Then we went to the earth. And now we're coming to the center, which is Hunabku, is where we transcend duality, but also integrate everything that we've done up to this point. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the moons that we're working with. Actually, let me go to the castles. Sorry, here. So here we can see the 5 castles that are part of the 260 days process or cycle. And so we're entering the middle. If you think of these as the 4 elements and the 5th being the ether, very similar to what we did on Heaven on Earth, which is the latest course that we put out. So we are starting the first wave spell of this castle of the ether. So here is where we integrate everything that is happening. That's why it's going to be quite intense, because we have done so much work and there has been so much disclosure, and many of the systems are collapsing and dissolving. And this is the shift where we all have to be working with our higher mind to make sure that this process elevates us to the highest timeline.
Right, and ether is a slightly strange energy to work with because it's not really of the physical domain, and so it does require some practice to get used to using it. But we all have that ability. We all have aspects of ourselves that exist within the etheric realms, and this again is where meditation comes in. Because as some of you may have seen in previous videos, we've been saying we are the creators, and it's from the etheric energy realms that we are able to manifest our dreams and thus create heaven on earth. However, it does require some kind of dynamic kinetic input from us, and at the same time, some sort of stillness and balance to be able to receive. It's not a mind exercise, it's actually an exercise of the heart to connect to our higher selves, where our higher selves have a clear channel to download to us the information that we need. But if our minds are hijacked or contaminated or getting distracted by the 101 different very aggressive news stories coming at us, then we're not allowing ourselves to do that.
So as I was saying, we are on a 13 tone or galactic tone process. We started this on the 26th of July. We're going to be shifting from the resonant moon of attunement, which would be number 7, and we had this beautiful totem of the monkey energy, and we'll shift on February 7th to the galactic moon of integrity, which is telling us harmonize, and also is about integrity and integration. So this is an energy that is going to invite us to be more observant, have a higher vision. Even though there is going to be a lot of emotional turmoil, we want to make sure that we're having a 5D perspective of everything, because this is what the hawk, the totem animal for this moon, is going to teach us: awareness, responsibility. He has broad perspectives on his wings, meaning that you need to go up and see the higher perspective of things, a more global vision of what's going on. Hawk is also considered the messenger of angels, devas, and the divine. Do you have anything on the hawk?
Only that we have one that's been visiting our garden in the last couple of weeks.
And the people that are born under this energy of the hawk totem in this part of the calendar tend to be more professionally oriented. They're blessed with good fortune. They have an amazing memory. But more than anything, we want to connect to the high notes of what the hawk has for us, which is optimism, higher perspective, a vision of what's going on, reconnection with our inner guidance and higher self. It's also a reminder, remember your higher self. We have our connection there, and it's available all the time.
Right, and also what's interesting, and I was just running the numbers through in my head as you were talking, Bella, is that this lunar moon of the hawk is actually going to cover the next 2 wave spells, and then the wave spell that's after that is going to be the blue eagle. So we have this conjoining actually run
through the birds.
Yeah, through the birds, which is that loftier perspective where the air is sweeter and fresher on our face, and perhaps is unburdened from the density that the birds can see down on planet Earth. And I think that that's really important, because it always reminds us, the hawk reminds us, the eagle reminds us, that we can rise to a different perspective, even if it's just in our inner awareness for a while, to take a different view on what is happening around us.
I think the energy of the bird is very active. I'm going to share that here in our backyard. Just a couple of days ago, we had about 60 or 80 birds that came to the 2 trees we have behind us. And many trees have come to the tree we have that is on our backyard. So there's been a lot of activity from the birds, which are connected to the morphogenetic field as well, and to all of the energy around the planet, the planetary grid.
Well, and again, this is one of the ways that we connect to nature. When we moved into this place, there wasn't really too many birds coming to our garden. Now, though, as Bella said, in the last few days, particularly since we did the air elemental aspect of heaven on earth, connecting to the winged friends, the feathered friends, we've had all kinds of birds turn up. And in fact, again, over the last few days, we have a brand new friend in the garden, which is a woodpecker. And the woodpecker, actually, in the world of the birds and of energy and shamanism, is the shaman. His tapping on the wood is very much like the beating of the shaman's drum. And so when we have these clues and signals around us, it's really, really worth paying attention. And sometimes it's easy to overlook the birds because they're small, but they're here to give us messages. And so when I sit in the morning to greet the sun and I see the woodpecker tapping out his message, I know that he wants me to be with my shamanic self. And of course, the hawk is also very connected as a totem animal in many realms of shamanism.
Right, and it's going to activate more of our psychic abilities.
Right.
So good 28 days to activate more of that psychic ability and clairvoyance and higher vision. Okay, so that's it for the hawk. We talked about the cycle we're starting. So the last 52 days of this Tzolkin are starting now on February 1st. So do pay attention. This is the moment of integration, of higher mind, of connecting with the ether, with the plasma, with the collective field. It's going to be super active, but if we are aware of what's going on, we can work and navigate through it.
Right, and also just to say, I want to put out a clarion call to all of you, our audience watching these videos on YouTube. Maybe some of you have signed up to be members of our QPW tribe website. It's free to join, of course. We are going to have a very big call, probably the biggest one we've done in quite a while on our site on Sunday, because we want to...
2nd of February.
The 2nd of February, because what we're seeing is that this is a critical moment. If you've been doing any of the initiations, or maybe you've got stuck on some of them, like the navigation guide or some of the other courses, we really want to empower everybody to finish those processes, because each time one of you do that, it had such a ripple effect. You know, and as we move forwards, we want to move forwards as one, not as individual bits and pieces fragmented all over the world. So if you're not aware of that, please do jump over to our website or sign up to the newsletter. We are giving regular reminders about that. There is an RSVP, but if you want to hear about more about what we see coming down the road in the next couple of weeks and how to manage that, then we would love to see you on that call, particularly if you haven't been with us for a while, right, Bella?
Yeah. So let me show you here the wave spell starts on kin 209. So you can see that we're in the last 3 columns of the Tzolkin. We'll go from 209 to 221. And we have 3 galactic portals on day 2, day 3, and day 10. So very important to be aware of those as well. And let's talk a little bit. So we're going from February 1st to February 13.
Right.
This is the actual glyph. If you have this tone or a red tone, it's always good to know which is your glyph. You can draw it, paint it, or at least print it out and be aware of which is your code. Let me talk a little bit about the qualities of the wave spell of the red magnetic moon. So the main theme here is feeling, meaning the emotions are going to be here on this very palpable, I would
On the
say.
surface,
On the
close to the
surface.
surface, maybe breaking the surface, we'll see.
And it's not only ours, but the collective. And this is where we need to be able to hold space. What other qualities does this glyph and archetype have? Purification. That's where we're going to recommend a plant or a couple of plants that help us with the purification process. Davyd will talk more about that. This energy of the red moon is also about the natural cycles. We need to comprehend where we're at, what part of the spiral or the big cycle of the planet we're at, so that we can shift our consciousness as well and flow all together. Emotions is the big theme, as I've been saying. And what can these glyphs help us do is self-remembrance. It's really important to know who we truly are and what we came to do in the planet at this point. This energy also connects us to the power of universal water. So if you want to work with water, go to the ocean, go to a river, have baths with plants or something that will help you reconnect with this energy and help your emotions settle. We need to reconnect to fluidity, flow, be in the flow. We're going to be thrown so much information, so many changes in these last castle, these 52 days, that we need to be able to adapt and flow, release and renew all the time. And we'll be getting also signs during this wave spell. So pay attention to the signs. It's a good wave spell for paying attention to the synchronicities, to the divine guidance, to cosmic communication. We all have lots of helpers. We all have cosmic guides. If you don't know how to connect to them, doing the stellar nations process is a very good way of doing so. Knowing your galactic archetype is another way of doing so. But if not, at least connect to your higher self. This archetype, the red moon, also helps us with lunar wisdom. All of the energy of the moon is active and we can work with that energy. It's also telling us to feel and be awakened, you know, pay attention to everything that's going on, be aware, and be that beacon of light and information and energy that you can help. Whatever you go into a room, you can bring that energy of, okay, we've got this, bring peace into that space so that people can feel that energy.
Right, so there is a very lunar aspect to this particular wave spell, as we'll look at in a minute. We do also have a full moon coming up later in this wave spell, but as Bella said, you know, this is a very emotional energy, and depending on where we are in the world, we might be receiving different inputs. But from our perspective here, we can see that there are many big disclosures coming to the whole world that are going to shock many people and cause them to radically have to reassess where they're taking advice from. Who do they believe? Which truths are they plugged into? Because for many people, the last 4 years may have looked different to our version of the last 4 years, maybe some of you too, but we have to understand that many people have been living in a different reality for quite a long time, going back to 2020 and everything that happened then. And this is the point where all of the different agendas, propagandas, everything that many people in particularly the mass society bought into even, are now going to realize that maybe they were hoodwinked. Maybe that news is not hitting the rest of the world just yet, but certainly here in the continent of North America, it's in everybody's awareness. And each day that goes by, there is more coming and more coming. And we can see that the shadow forces are on their knees, basically, and fighting tooth and nail for survival. As you would expect, this is the final moments of their own system that they have been running here on planet Earth for a very, very long time. And they've been accustomed to being in charge. And they don't like the fact that maybe they're going to lose control of that system. Right. However, that also requires everybody to understand that that's what's been going on. So a lot of illumination often comes with a full moon. And I think, Bella, that from what I'm seeing in my meditations, from how I'm tracking all of the energies, I can see that there is so much resistance from the collective to being illuminated by many of the things that have happened over the last 4 years. And that's also to say that this is the planet of duality, of free will, and of choice. And we all got to make choices, and there is no judgment about any choices that anybody has made. However, cause and effect, karma does mean that action often has a reaction, and those are just parts of a process.
But this is the point of break of resistance.
Right.
Because even the shadow of this red moon is the resistance to flow. Negative self-talk or connecting to the fear factor or any negative emotions, to hide your light, maybe being too distracted and missing the synchronicities or signs, or thinking that that doesn't exist. So not connecting to this flow or to the advice or the intuition that even your guides are sending you or your higher self. You need to be super in tune with that.
Right, that's a really good point. Are we actually listening to our fifth dimensional, non-dualistic, intuitive self, or are we getting more triggered in the lower density frequencies of the 4D astral realm because we're believing things that other people have told us? We're taking secondhand advice and believing it as gospel without actually running it through our own intuitive system. And hey, you know, I think over the last 4 years, that's probably applied to a lot of people. But if we want to be sovereign, that means that we have to step up and take responsibility and start addressing where we are having these emotional turmoils. It's part of being human. It's what we signed up to this experiment to come and understand. But also, it doesn't mean that we have to stay there. Nobody wants to stay in a place of anxiety and trauma in perpetuity. It's not an awful lot of fun. And so perhaps this is the moment where we say enough is enough. I want to be living and being in a different kind of frequency moving forwards. And if that means I have to keep letting go of a whole variety of different things, then so be it. I made that choice a long time ago. I know that Bella did, and many of you have too. But the trick now is to keep letting go, keep expanding into the bigger unity consciousness that is available. But if we're diminishing ourselves, handing over our sovereignty to other people and letting them make decisions for us, well, there's a little bit of a discord there, I would suggest.
Yeah, and empowerment is the theme. I think we'll talk more about that in the astrology part. And also about the emotional part, which is very active in the astrological section.
Right.
So more tips to navigate this wave spell is be grateful, forgive. Not it's about being able to forgive yourself. We all have something we feel guilty about or bad about. We need to let go of all of those things, but do the inner process and be able to forgive and be grateful for the lessons that we've had up to this point. Go with the flow in the river of life. because we're going to need that at this point. Connect deeply with water. If you have a practice that involves water, or just even swimming, or being under the rain or the moonlight, something that helps you process all of these emotional transformation.
Right. Well, turmoil, even
Yes.
disharmony, all of those
Disharmony.
kinds of things.
Open yourself to divine guidance, purify your emotional body, and connect to creative expressions. Yeah, art is super useful at this point, whether you're into knitting or weaving or painting, something that helps you process all of this emotional upheaval.
Right. So do something you love. For me, that means getting into the garden, doing some potting
Yeah.
or planting some seeds, or if the weather's not too good, like it's been recently, to get into the kitchen, start making food, alchemizing ingredients, something that nourishes us, something that I love doing. Bella loves my food, so it's really a joy to cook for somebody like that. But, you know, do it for yourself. Do something that makes you feel happy. Don't allow your life to be driven by negative agendas.
So I wanted to mention here the higher archetype, the galactic archetype of the red moon is the healer. And I wanted to bring her here because it's all to do with what's happening at this moment. There are rising healing energies, and we want to be able to spread them around the world. Many people are going to be needing healing energies. Many of us have been doing healing for a long time, but the majority of the population haven't. So maybe it's the moment you're going to have to step up and use whatever skills you've gathered in the last 4 years, 10 years, whatever, however long it is. Because also we need to incorporate the divine feminine energies, which are part of this process. We're going on the next cycle, which is the higher timeline, but now we need to go in balance, where there is divine feminine and divine masculine working together, balance within ourselves and balance on the outside as well. The red moon is the cosmic seed of awakened awareness. We need to be more conscious all the time about being observant, integrating what's going on, connected to the collective mind. And this is a quest for self-remembrance. Part of what we do, what I've been doing for a long time through here, through the QPH and QPW platforms, is to help people remember who they are. And we do these through the sessions with the galactic signature, where you learn what are your archetypes, what energy do you have, what did you come to do right now at this moment of the big evolutionary shift. And then also we need to recognize the larger pattern. What is going on, not only for the planet, but what role do we play in part of the galactic story, which is part of what we've been digging into for the last few days more and more. Because it's important that we understand as we heal, we'll get more of that perception of unity. We're all connected. We are all connected through our hearts and through the collective mind as well. So this red moon energy, the healer energy, is super important at this moment because it's a beacon, a transmitting station. So whatever you're feeling, if you're stressed, that's what you're transmitting to the collective. If you're anxious, whatever it is what you're transmitting. So we need to be aware all the time. What am I feeling? I'm stressed. Okay, I need to go and process that energy, ground, do something. And then when you're in a better space, and your heart is more open and you're feeling better, transmit that energy, transmit gratitude or anything that is in your heart that you feel will help the collective mind as well.
Right, you know, and as Bella's saying all of these things, what's coming to my mind again is the very well-known phrase, where attention goes, energy flows. And again, to re-emphasize, we are the creators. It's always been true, but somehow in this new era that we're in, the manifestation consciousness is so much faster. Many people like us are also seeing that time is speeding up. We're 1 minute looking at the clock, and then the next thing, it's 2 hours has passed and it felt like 10 minutes. Well, wow, what happened there? Maybe some of you have been experiencing that acceleration of time. But most of all, what you said, Bella, that struck me is, and this applies to all of this, what am I doing here? If you're not asking yourself that question in this most chaotic and tumultuous of times, then perhaps you're missing the whole point. It's like if we're still sat back waiting, thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to wait for this to pass. I'll go on my usual August holiday or whatever. I would suggest that maybe that's not the game that we're in right now. And this is the moment for action, but also a time for action that maybe is not out there doing lots of things in the world, but a moment for meditational action, for contemplating what energy am I giving to my own process to realize who I am and why I'm here. And in doing that, you're sending out a much more positive ripple effect frequency into the crystalline grid, into the Christ or Christos consciousness grid, which is a much more higher fifth, sixth dimensional template that is now actually embedded into the earth. With the Yeshua and Pluto Cazimis that we talked about in the last wave spell, many big energy sequences happened. And if you go into meditation and ask to see what those were, as we did, you will see what they were. It's not for us to tell you. Each person might view it differently. But what I want to say is that when we go into meditation with very clear questions to ask of our higher self, and we're open to receive, and we've done our shadow work, the answers will come almost instantly in a way that I've never experienced before. And so that's why I actually like meditating, because it's a much more engaging process now. I converse with my higher self, my multidimensional self, and all of the wonderful off-planet guides and friends that I have, and they give me advice, and they encourage me each day to stay grounded, to stay centered, not to while away time or to waste time, but to be very excited about the magic that every day and every moment can offer us. But again, we have to be in that space.
Okay, so this wave spell, just to summarize it, is the moment to take off the veil of forgetfulness, become beacons of awakened awareness, open ourselves to self-remembrance, to remember who we truly are, and step into what we actually came to do at this point. As usual, the reflective questions to ride this wave, it's here, starting with identify the purpose, and then you ask the question. There is a question for every single day.
With this, Bella, maybe I'm putting you on the spot here, but with everything you know about this particular glyph and this wave spell, what would you perhaps advise people to really meditate on in preparation for the first day of this wave spell? What do you think would be a good series of suggestions for people to magnetize towards them, given everything you've shared already?
So the first thing would be, are there any burdens, emotional burdens that I'm feeling at the moment? I need to identify. The purpose would be, I want to be able to flow and heal and purify, but also above all, I want self-remembrance. Who am I? What am I here to do? What is my life purpose? Have I done the plans to step into my mission? Compassion, it's also very important. If you see you can help people, many people are going to need help at this point. How can you be of service?
Right, and bearing in mind, of course, this is a red glyph, it's an initiation glyph, so perhaps this is the moment with this wonderful energy of possibility, which is ether over the next 2 months, to magnetize towards us the imperative, I want to initiate myself into a new way of being that perhaps is much more etherically driven, manifesting from the etheric realms down into 3D. When we try to manifest from 3D only, it doesn't really work.
Good. So this is the galactic and Mayan part of the session. Just to remind people, the course is here, still available on the platform, where we go more into different calendars, understand more the nature of time. We go into the archetypes, the galactic signatures, and how to work with this calendar in this moment of evolutionary shift. So that's still in the platform and is at a discounted price now.
Right, so to be honest, I've been looking at the astrology for this wave spell for a while, and indeed, in fact, over the last couple of wave spells, what we noticed was that we weren't even really covering much of the lunar action. Our attention seemed to be being pulled towards other interesting transits. So whenever I do the astrological parts of these quantum compasses, I'm looking for a sort of a gestalt or an image that is normally formed, for me at least anyway, through the layout of the astrology. And I have to say that this last wave spell, the one we've been in, and this one coming into, was more tricky, but we do have some big transits coming up in the Western astrological system. We're just using this one at the moment because it's where the impact is going to happen in 3D. We do understand that this Western system is perhaps showing us what is likely to show up in 3D rather than the more etheric, soulful perspective that we feel the sidereal gives us the vantage point from. Right now, though, we're in it. We're in the stuff. We're in the thick of the storm. And so perhaps it's more useful to see how this may be manifesting around us so that we can navigate that. So the wave spell kicks off on February the 1st with Venus conjuncting Neptune in the very final degrees of Pisces, almost 2759. Now, there is also a conjunction between Venus, Neptune, and the North nodes. But when I was looking at this, I was seeing that there were slightly different dates given for the exactitude moment when that happens. And that, I think, depends slightly on whether you're using the true North nodes or the mean North nodes. So there is some difference there. But the overall emphasis is much the same, as that we have Venus, Neptune, and the North Node basically all sat on top of each other at the beginning of this wave spell, which is, I think, a very powerful signatory note there for us to include into the mix of everything that Bella has just shared. We then roll forward a couple of days to February the 3rd, and Mars in Cancer is squaring Chiron in Aries. Two very, very challenging energies. And if you remember back in the last wave spell, we were talking about Mercury going to visit everybody. And actually what we saw was that of all of the different aspects he was forming, the three most difficult ones were with Mars, Chiron, and Black Moon Lilith. So it seems, Bella, that this square here of Mars in Cancer squaring Chiron is perhaps going to bring up all of that unresolved, wounded stuff, which is really what Chiron is about. We then move forwards to February the 9th, when we have one of the optimal transits that we always look for, which is the Cazimis. And in this case, it's a Mercury Cazimi, also happening here in Aquarius. So there's a lot of energy in both the water sign of Pisces, but also the air sign of Aquarius. But Aquarius is also the water bearer. So again, we have this watery energy of the moon, of the emotions. We still have good old Kronos, grandfather time himself, swimming without any kind of anchor in Pisces. There is going to be a lot more of the Saturnian energy coming in. We can see that we have this kind of really big stellium happening here in Pisces. And I also included, Bella, the wonderful cat energy of Sekhmet here, who is now moving into a conjunction with Saturn. So we also have that sort of royal energy of the feminine cat aspect. But of course, in one of her forms, Sekhmet is also a bit like a Kali. She is the destroyer of worlds when it's necessary. That is part of the wrathful aspect of the goddess that sometimes is needed, particularly when we're collapsing one system and installing a new one. So we have this Mercury Cazimi coming up here, which we'll show the slide for in a minute. And then towards the end of this wave spell, we're going to round out with a full moon in Leo, which of course is more leonine cat energy as well. So Bella, just off the cuff, they're looking at these four major transits, and including the Neptune conjuncting the North Node. What does your first intuition tell you?
So it confirms what I was talking about before. First, there is going to be a very emotional with all of these big stellium in Pisces, which includes the moon. So it is going to bring a lot of emotion into the collective, but also I think it marks a historical shift where many things are going to change. We're going to come to an end of many things. And the fact that Saturn is there tells me that many of the structures, including time, are going to be changed, coming to an end. Many of those things haven't happened for like hundreds of years. For example, when the Neptune and the North Node last met in that point, it hadn't happened for like hundreds of years. I think it was in the 1800s. So it marks again that end of a cycle that we've been talking about. And we know that Pluto, the Sun, and Jeshua Cassimi already started the new time in Aquarius, which is telling us the new has started. We need to wrap up here with Pisces, everything that's been going on.
Right, and of course, this is the 1st of February. It's the first day of this wave spell. And if we're looking here where Bella is highlighted in the Pisces area of the chart, we can also see that the moon is also getting involved for a couple of days. So I would suggest that this is where the action is at right now. I have included a few other things that maybe I'll allude to in a minute, but I think that when we look at this stellium in the latter degrees of Pisces, you know, Pisces is the final sign of the zodiac. It's also about unity, collective consciousness. It also has the energy of the Christ consciousness, of course, this being the age of Pisces. It's very, very watery. And what it also speaks to me of, with being quite a Piscean being myself, is about being the individuated drops of sovereign beings in the collective unity consciousness ocean that we can say. And so how do we find ourselves as beings in the collective energy? That is the question that good old Saturn has been having to ponder over for quite a while, as he's kind of gone backwards and forwards for the last few months over these middle points of Pisces. He's now got Sekhmet coming to join him to tell him that his time is over, I feel, and it's okay, Pops. You can now become the grandfather. You can become grandfather time. Take a back seat. There are other beings here who wish to relieve you of your duties and perhaps look at things differently. And I feel, Bella, that Sekhmet coming into conjunction there with Saturn, perhaps it's just reminding Saturn that resistance is futile. There's no need for drama. This is just the process. Mother Nature goes through it every year in the winter death and rebirth process. Sekhmet is also a very beautiful, powerful, feminine energy, but also sometimes needs to come and wield the more destructive forces, because when something is collapsing, it needs that ability.
It will destroy when it needs to.
It will destroy when it needs to. I've also included here over in Pisces, we can see that the energies of both the Yeshua asteroid that we talked about in the last wavespell and show, and then Mercury and the Sun are also all gathering very closely together there. And the Sun will be coming into conjunction with Ceres actually at the beginning, the first day of the next wavespell, which we'll do more of a piece on. So we have a Ceres Cazimi also coming up. If we look over to Scorpio, I did manage to find an asteroid called Bella, which maybe is something more personal for us. It's currently at 16 degrees of Scorpio. It's amazing what you can find in the asteroid list, guys. However, I've also included Atlantis, because I feel a lot of what this watery energy is going to talk to us about, particularly with Neptune, god of the underworld sea area, very connected, of course, to sunken cities and everything that is below the surface of the waterline, is now sat at quite a potent degree in Scorpio, 7 degrees. As Atlantis moves through Scorpio, it's not difficult to understand that this is also a reflection of the death and rebirth process of that great civilization that perhaps we are now starting to see more clearly preceded the one that we are currently in. What I've been seeing, Bella, from a lot of the research that we've been doing in our own meditations is that we are now opening up the Akashic records of human history. And the more that we've been looking at it, the more it's expanded, the more material has come to us, the more we're being confronted with the fact that we're not these small, little helpless beings here in this slave system. We are incredibly powerful beings, soulful beings who've been on a huge galactic cosmic journey. And this iteration here is just the current aspect of that, but it's also the initiation point for us to become the cosmic humans that we've actually always been, to remember who we are. But again, we need to go inwards. We need to meditate on who we are. We need to speak to our higher selves. We need to look at our natal birth charts and not say, hey, I've been a Scorpio my whole life. I'm always going to be a Scorpio. No, I want to transform. I want to use the alchemy of the birth sign that I chose to come into so that I can actually evolve into being something different.
I agree, especially since some of the topics highlighted with this astrology are spiritual revival with that activation of Neptune, consciousness and expansion, because we're getting, I think it's Jupiter that is going to move direct very soon as well. Compassion, all of this activity in Pisces, and love, acceptance, forgiveness. So we're all part of the same, we're all on the same planet. We all need to connect more to that compassion and unconditional love, I think.
Right, exactly. And of course, I failed to mention there, of course, that Pluto is still in that early stellium in Aquarius, still in a conjunction, we can say, with Yeshua. And the conversation between Yeshua, the sort of, we can say, the front man of the Christ consciousness, imperative, had a very, very deep conversation with the Lord of the Underworld himself, Hades or Pluto. And as a consequence, we can understand that the energy realms, that it was decided that the underworld would be cleansed once and for all. But in the cleansing process that happened, the energy got flushed to the surface for illumination, which is what the moon is very good at doing. So what I would like to suggest is that even if stuff seems very overwhelming, like again, the Piscean energy there, too much water, it's only temporary. It doesn't have to stay like that. What is true for one day is not necessarily true for the next day, which is where following these 13-day wave spells is so useful, because when you know that, You know that the energy from one day to the next is part of a sequence. I would love to invite all of you to step into that process deeply and strongly over these next 13 days and work with not just whatever comes up for yourself, but understand that that is a fractal mirror image of what is going on for the collective. And we as one individual willing to empower ourselves is going to have the same fractal effect on the collective. And even if just a few hundred of us, a few thousand, a few tens of thousands will actually be the tipping point.
So I wanted to mention how Venus there is part of this mixture and this stellium, reminding us of what we were mentioning earlier, which is being a catalyst for love, for higher perspective, for inclusivity, like that feminine energy that wants to make sure that everybody's taken into account, everybody counts, and is for the highest good of all, dissolving separation, the illusion of separation.
Right, and as we were just talking about briefly, we've been working through the very, very powerful inner elemental rebalancing journey of the heaven on earth. And one of the watery beings that I have long worked with is a very powerful deity, we can say, from the Celtic world called Manannan MacLear. Now, I decided to have a look for an asteroid of Manannan. It's not written under that spelling, which is the more Gaelic spelling, but I did find Manawithin, which is the Welsh spelling for this being. Now, this being is important, and not necessarily in this moment, but I want to put it into your awareness because he is the keeper of the veil, very connected to the Isle of Man, and he is here currently in the latter degrees of Aquarius as well. He is going to come into a very, very powerful Cazimi in a couple of wavespells time. So I'd like to just put that into your awareness. If you're at all aware of any of these stories, you will understand that the keeper of the veil is a very important being because he is the one actually responsible for putting up the veil and taking down the veil. And the veil really is our ability to see into the astral realms and beyond. So there is a sequence here which is going to happen, not just because Davyd and Bella are suggesting, or many other people too, but because it's actually the energetic imperative of this moment. And it doesn't really matter what messages other forces are trying to put out to tell you otherwise. They are also in the same boat. We are all being forced to go through this evolutionary process is actually necessary. And if we're in a place of fear or resistance about it, it's going to be so much harder. And it doesn't need to be like that. This is actually what we all signed up for, everybody. We came to be in this moment and to work with the energies, to be the inner shamans, to be the inner wizards and beautiful healers and all of these things. And I think that we have this Mercury Cazimi here, Bella, on February the 9th, as a reminder. There's going to be a message coming from the sun to everybody. We know that the sun has been ramping up its activities. It is the conductor, energy, spirit being that is actually overseeing this whole process, of course, with Mother Earth. And I think that it's also important to put that into people's awarenesses so that they can receive, perhaps through meditation on that day, what is their message from Mercury.
Yeah. I think what Mercury has been doing when we've been tracking this for a few weeks now is giving the new instructions, telling everybody there's a new plan, we've moved on, we're now all into Aquarius, the new world is started, this is the new blueprint, are you on the same page?
Right, and we can see here, this is just 9 days on from the previous chart we looked at. And if we look down to Pisces, we can see that Sekhmet has already gone past Saturn. So she is in a bit of a hurry. She has things she wants to do, and she's catching up very quickly to the North Node and Neptune. So I suggest that when she comes into a more close alignment with our collective future, the North Node, but also the watery depths of Neptune in Pisces, that things could get a little explosive, but perhaps with a more dampened down muffle effect because of the element of water. So I would suggest that even if stuff is coming up, it's not necessarily going to explode, perhaps in quite the ways that many people have prophesized, or even the way that some of the divisive forces would love us to believe. Because if we believe those energies, chances are we're going to get into a place of fear and anxiety. So again, really important to meditate above that. And even if we see destruction and chaos, is to understand that perhaps maybe a powerful feminine being like Sekhmet may be one of the instigators of this.
I'd like to mention here how the movement of Pluto into Aquarius and how we had the Cazimi with the sun and everything, how much that energy has already activated, the amount of information that is come through, the blockchain and cryptocurrencies now being pretty much very close to a reality for our financial system. The AI, the battle between China and the US for AI and technology and being at the front of everything. there is so much activity now in the Aquarian area of what the planet is.
Right, and again, from meditations, even in the last couple of days, what I can say is that the energy has gone supernova. It's gone sci-fi world in the astrals, and that's not just because I'm saying that or imagining it when I go in and ask to see what is the actual state of affairs in the energy realm. That's what it looks like. It's here, everybody. I know that many people are worried about that, possibly even afraid of what does it mean. We're having to make adjustments ourselves into understanding what do quantum financial systems look and feel like. Are they safe? How do we tell a good one from a bad one? This is where knowing your body medicine and discernment is going to play a critical factor, because it may well be that there are some things that are very, very difficult to discern. And the only way to do that is through the heart energy. However, also just want to note here very briefly, Bella, that we have a beautiful sextile happening really with the Sekhmet North Node energy, specifically here in conjunction with both Uranus and Magdalene energy there in the latter degrees of Taurus. So I think that's a very, very harmonious energy that can also say that the moment of change, of inspiration, particularly with this feminine input, can come at any minute. But because Uranus is in Taurus, it's likely to come from the earth.
Mm-hmm. So I do think that this wave spell is really important, because even though it has so much emotion and so much chaos moving around the planet, it has a huge amount of possibilities. It has really good energies if you know how to flow with them. For example, on the 4th of February, when Jupiter goes stationary direct, then we can be on track with the planning that we did during the wave spell of the warrior. And there could be opportunities and rewards and opportunities for growth and expansion. So this is where we can't sink with too much emotional stuff. We need to be riding the wave. We need to be surfing so we can pick up the rewards along the way too.
Right, so perhaps we'll just move on to the final slide. I think we shared most of what we want to share about the astrology, but to round out on the day of cooperation, we do have this full moon in Leo on February the 12th. Really, from my perspective, Bella, I think this is really calling on that energy of the great felines, particularly the winged lions, which is really about nobility, about leadership, and about remaining calm, really calling on the warrior energy, the energy that a king or a leader or a queen might need in times of distress for their people. It's no good if the people with the wisdom and the knowledge about how to navigate situations are the ones that are dissolving and having meltdowns in front of us. And maybe that's not what we need. But at the same time, we don't want to be waiting for a savior. And of course, without naming any names, there are many figures in our world right now who carry a lot of that Leo energy in different ways that many people are saying are the savior. Well, I would suggest that we are the saviors. We have always been the saviors of ourselves, because it's within us to become sovereign. That is not something that anybody else can give us. It is something we have to find within ourselves, even if it means making difficult decisions, which is where the energy of the lions comes into play. So with that in mind, I just wanted to jump to the last couple of slides here for this particular wave spell. They're old friends. We're not going to bang the drum too much on these ones, but we have, of course, the lion's tooth energy, dandelion reminding us to be present. Also at this time when there might be a lot of detoxification needed, both of these plants are going to be very, very useful. Perhaps as a tea, as a tincture, maybe you might want to do a parasite cleanse. We've got our other good old friend here, the beautiful lady wormwood, Artemisia absinthium. This is the plant par excellence for removing any types of parasitic energies that might be siphoning our ability to sit with our own energy in meditation space. Dandelion is very, very good at detoxifying unhelpful heavy metals from the body, but also really, really reminding us that we can fix our DNA ourselves by meditating, working with this plant, going inwards, perhaps also in conjunction with our stellinations pathway. We can start to work through and actually talk to our DNA. It's really just our off-planet selves that got disconnected as part of this experiment. It's okay. It's something we all signed up to, but maybe now is the time to take active action at the sovereign empowered level by going inwards and calling on these beautiful beings who want to help us. And of course, you know, this is the energy of the moon. The Artemisias are really some of the best plants for developing the psychic senses and allowing us to see more clearly into the psychic realms, where sometimes our visions and our intuitions can be a little bit distorted if we're not grounded, rooted and centered, all of which, of course, dandelion helps us with too.
I agree.
So that's it really. These are plants we talked about before. The last thing to say really is that we are just now in the very final stages of completion. All 6 modules of our recent powerful course, Heaven on Earth, are now available. And there's a special offer to help perhaps in these times of challenge. We're offering a really generous 40% off until February the 3rd. So really over these next few days. And the feedback from this course has been amazing. We found it to be super powerful because we also just finished working with the ether element, actually really just in a very timely way as we enter into this ether castle. But what we realized was that when we're working around the medicine wheel, working with our inner air element, our inner fire, our inner water, and inner earth, we can see just the fluctuations. I found working in water quite difficult. I'm a watery being. Too much water is difficult to work with. So what did it force me to do? It forced me to see where I was in too much water and then to move into my earth element and ground more firmly, which is an energy that I do working with trees and by being in nature. So this whole medicine wheel is really a way of teaching and sharing with you how to make sure that your inner elements are balanced, and not just your inner element, but your sacred center, which is your kind of tone number 5, your place of radiance, to the higher energies, to the etheric energies, which are really the heaven mind space, we can say. And we want to bring those down on earth because now is the moment that we need to come together, all of us, hence the call that we're having to our tribe on Sunday, to share how we can all move together as one unity consciousness with the heaven on earth that we wish to see. Not a second-hand recycled system that we've been given for several thousand years and keep signing up to because we don't know anything different, but we can dare to dream. We are the creators, everybody. You know, you can perhaps tell from our transmission today that we're feeling the energy very strongly and wanting to empower and transmit to all of you who followed us for many years the need to be in that place of stillness, but also internal dynamic action. And maybe the outside world is a little difficult to deal with right now. So again, working with material like this is where you can put your energy to something that is self-empowering by going inwards and working with all of the beautiful different plants and guardians and guides and goddesses and gods that we called into this very, very powerful course, because some of them may well be beings that you work with, and it might just help you organize your internal space that little bit more coherently, or maybe hopefully completely coherently, because when you get all of that balance, then the ether channel opens up so much more strongly. And in doing so, we can really reconnect with our intention to universal fractal time. We no longer need to be living in the 1260 slavery matrix system.
Very powerful course. If you have done this course, please comment below and share with somebody. Recommend it if you like it, because it was super powerful for us. We got so many downloads. We created our tree of life. We activated it within ourselves. We activated it with the tree that we're working with so that we can access the unified quantum field. It is really powerful, and you learn quite a few things from how to do that.
Right, and many of you may have worked with medicine wheels before. I certainly have for a long time, but every time I revisit the medicine wheel, do another spin of it, particularly in this kind of format, it just amplifies and expands. And now, because of the nature of the energy flow we're in, because of the ether energy available now in this next castle, it can really elevate our consciousness and our visions of ourselves. What are we doing here? Why am I here? Am I here just to watch this whole show unfold and not participate? Am I taking an active role in my community? Or maybe you're taking more of an active individual role. Sometimes we're a bit like this, holding space in the energy realms, surveying what is going on in our own way, trying to transmit it to all of you here on our YouTube channel through our videos, but also in the live calls that we do with our tribe. So finally, also just to share, you know, this course sits really, really well with everything that we've just previously talked about. It's 13 different steps, 1 to 13, which amazingly, of course, mirrors the different steps and tones of a wave spell. And if you're wanting to understand how you can switch to universal time, how to work with etheric energy, not just here and there, but as a daily practice to bring heaven down to earth, how to understand how we got split from the number 12 to the 13. It's all in here, all in the navigation guide to quantum consciousness. And finally, if you are struggling and feeling like you could do with some help, perhaps from the different skill sets that myself and Bella offer, we have been running this special offer until the last day of this Yellow Warrior wave spell, which of course is in the next 24 hours or so. We're offering a very generous 26% off the combined package that we offer, activating the Grail within, where the first session is 2 hours with me, going through the field, clearing any unnecessary attachments, distortions, even kinds of energies that perhaps are not serving us, maybe even some soul retrieval that is necessary to ensure that you are as complete as you can be. And then Bella?
I do the biodecoding part. We go into the emotions, the emotional body. We do everything that has to do with removal of traumas in different timelines within your family tree. And then we do the galactic signature reading, which is understanding your archetype, your purpose, and what is the next steps, how to move forward with that.
Right, so really a dual-faceted approach. One is helping you to get to where you need to be, and then really with Bella's kind of bio shock release, and then the mind glyph activation, really activating that essence. I know when Bella did it for me, I have never really been the same since in a positive way, and I know many of you out there who've had those activations have said the same thing. So that's it really for today, everybody. Thank you for listening. If you've made it this far, then you will be awarded a gold watch, just to remind you that we need to switch time signatures here. As always, trying to have fun with all of this, but I hope you've got the sense of urgency that we're trying to transmit today. We don't want to get into sharing doom and gloom, divisive videos. It's not our way. We always try to lead from the front in a positive way, but at the same time, we are saying to everybody, this is it. Please step up, wake up, help others to wake up, not by forcing your opinions on them, but by being in your heart and exhibiting and exuding that kind of radiant Christ consciousness energy, the energies of Sophia and Yeshua and Magdalene and Jesus and many other powerful avatar beings who are in that frequency as well, because it is the way through all of this. Right,
yeah, lots of compassion with yourself, with others, especially family and friends and neighbors, and be in the flow, because it's going to require us to be less attached and less paying attention to the density and fear that is going to be pumped out there. Come back to your center, try to ground yourself, purify, get some teas, dandelion tea is brilliant, and let's try to navigate this together. 4 very important wave spells ahead of us, and then we'll wrap up the Tzolkin, hopefully on a high note if we're all working together.
Right, and of course, just remember, I've got our Palo Santo and White Sage here. We also work, of course, with plants like the wormwoods and the mugwort for cleansing and purification. I would suggest that on a daily basis, you might just want to give your field a spritz, take an Epsom salt bath. Do not let things slide for 2 or 3 days. If you're feeling a little bit out, every time we feel like that, we come back to ourselves, we do an energetic clearing on ourselves or each other, and we keep trying to move from day to day in that way as clear in the mind space as possible. And we understand that it's difficult. There are a lot of big energies going on. Even if we turn off the television, it doesn't matter. The energies are still hitting us every day. And we're having to navigate that the same as everybody else. But we're also using all of the tools that we've shared with you here on this video and, of course, over on QPW too. So to finish off, we hope to see as many of you, our wonderful brothers and sisters out there. Please do hit like and subscribe if you've made it this far and haven't already done so. And if you would like to hear what we have to say at a bigger level on the Sunday call, please do head over to QPW and sign up. And also, if you want to send us a message or say how to get involved, then of course we will assist you with that too. So that's it really for this week.
Yeah, I just want to say lots of healing over this wave spell, and let's remember who we truly are and what we came to do at this very, very monumental moment. Okay? In Lakesh.
In Lakesh. See you again soon, everybody. Bye for now.